Holy mackerel, look at all this stuff.
Good to go? Yeah. Morning, everybody. Hope everybody's doing well. Let's get started. Let's call this meeting to order, our regular meeting, August 13th of 2020. We've got everybody there. We have a quorum. We can conduct business. Can everybody hear okay? We'll get a thumbs up. Everybody good? 13th of 2020. We've got everybody there. We have a quorum. We can conduct business. Can everybody hear okay? Thumbs up. Everybody good with that? 20, we've got everybody there. We have a quorum. We can conduct business. Can everybody hear okay?
Yes.
Hey, Joe, we're getting, feedback, basically it just keeps replaying Jeff, and I think everybody loves Jeff, but they don't wanna hear him over and over. Joe, we're getting, feedback, basically it just keeps replaying Jeff, and I think everybody loves Jeff, but they don't wanna hear him over and over. Joe,
I'm looking to,
feedback, it just keeps replaying Jeff, and I think everybody loves Jeff, but they don't want to hear him over.
We love Mark too, but we don't want to hear him over and over again either.
It just keeps replaying Jeff, and I think everybody loves Jeff, but they don't want to hear him over.
Mark,
We love Mark too, but we don't want to hear him over and over again either.
it's your laptop is doing audio as well as the
Jeff, I
phone.
think everybody loves Jeff, but they don't want to hear him over.
Mark,
We love Mark too, but we don't want to hear him over and over again either.
it's your laptop is doing audio as well as the phone. Mark,
We love Mark too, but we don't want to hear him over and over again either.
it's your laptop is doing audio as well as the phone. Mark,
We love Mark too, but we don't want to hear him over and over again either.
it's your laptop is doing audio as well as the phone. Thank you. Thank you. Got it figured out. I was able to mute the other stream. Are we okay now? Are we okay now? All right. I got the other stream muted. I think we're okay now. Adam's on his way. You can just tell him we got it.
Mark, what do you have in that cup? Coffee? You're muted.
I think I was on mute. Bryson, I need a little Bailey's in this coffee.
And I don't know if the boardroom can hear me, but if you dial in, we've got it sorted out now. You'll want to call in, I think, to use the speakerphone. There you go. Dial in on the phone.
There. Can you hear now, Joe?
Yeah, everything's good now.
You hear any feedback?
Nope.
Okay.
Okay, so, okay, never mind.
You can mute it on the laptop or on the phone and when you call it. Is that Michelle's house?
The boardroom is on mute. You should unmute, please. And then we're good. There you go. Perfect.
Good. Okay. We don't have anybody coming in for a public comment period. Minutes of previous meetings, everybody get a chance to look at them? Any corrections?
One
Additions?
correction.
Go ahead,
It's
Chris.
Solar United Neighbors, not Solar United. That's it.
Oh, can we get a motion to accept the minutes if everybody's good with them?
So moved.
Motion by Dick, second by Liz.
Did you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So did you take note of that correction?
we
Okay,
did.
thanks.
Yep. All those in favor? Motion carried. Thank you. Attorney's report, Bryson.
And there's nothing to report in addition to what Levi has provided you with already.
Any questions for Bryson?
For some reason, I couldn't open Levi's email. It was a weird format. I don't know if anybody else had that same issue.
Huh. Okay, I'll make sure we get that copy out to you.
Okay, mine came as a win.dat, whatever that is, but it wouldn't open like usual. So I don't
Every
know.
now and again, but as we deal with different ISPs, sometimes things come across as a win.dat. It's a rare occurrence, but it happens. So I'll make sure to get you a copy of it, though.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for Bryson? Okay. Manager report. Mark?
Okay, you have the report. I'm just gonna make a couple comments on a few of the items. We had on the first page, we're working with Winter Park on the 14 level 2 chargers. We are experiencing a little bit of a problem with their attorney, and we developed an agreement for them to sign, and they want to put in additional restrictions and other things that Mountain Parks would warranty, which we will have that taken care of next week. On the second page on community solar, I did meet with representatives of Northern Colorado, and ISI came with me to look at possible sites for the community solar. We identified one that works for both us and them, and they requested that I send them the draft lease that we had provided to the other landowner, so they're reviewing that now. And it looks good to be able to move forward with that project, assuming that their board is good with the lease. And we would potentially start construction next year. With the safety officer, we've been working with the recruiter now for a couple of weeks. Gilbert and Associates meet with them every Friday. They provided us with 6 potential candidate names. We've gone over them, asked additional questions. He's gone back to them. We currently have 1 resume that we're reviewing. Well, actually 2 resumes now that we're reviewing, and I'll have another call with him tomorrow. Normally, what he will do is provide me with an overview, and then he provides me with the resume, and then we ask a bunch of questions, which he goes back and asks them before we would have any conversation directly with the candidate. So I'll pause there to see if anybody has any questions on either of those before I move on to the next one.
How big
Go ahead.
on Northern Colorado Water's solar project? How big was that again? And are they looking to oversize that or just serve their facility?
That is actually Mountain Parks Community Solar, and we would just be using their land to build it. Liz?
Yeah, just curious about the I mean, you kind of went through the process. Do we have any idea on how long it's going to take us to get a new safety officer?
No, we did recruitment on our own, and we did review of like 3 sets of candidates. We did interviews with 2, and 1 declined the offer before we made it, and the second one, after doing an in-person interview, we just felt that they didn't have the experience necessary to for what we needed. Our hope is that within the next couple of months that we will have somebody. We have 2 very promising candidates at this point, but they have to be willing to move forward in the process as well. So
I don't think we're alone in it either, Liz. I talked to CREA the other day, and I think there's 3 or 4 co-ops looking for safety positions as well, so.
Oh, yeah, it seems like it's a real challenge, and especially, you know, it's compounded with the RESAP pause, it seems like, you know, well, not compounded, but there's just, for me, it's a bit of a concern without having RESAP happening, without having a safety officer. It leaves us a little, you know, we did have the federated inspection, but I mean, Rich, I'm sure you're taking on more, you know, but in this time, we got to focus on zero contacts.
And that still is our focus, and we're continuing to do our safety meetings. And before Stan left, he and Rich worked on topics for the next couple of safety meetings. At some point, we'll run out of topics, and Rich will have to come up with some of his own. But other than that, I think we're good at this point. Okay, moving on, the fiber backbone. We had been working with 2 parties. They had provided us with an NDA. There were some issues related to the NDA and authority. We were trying to work through those issues, but we also had some concern over some of the terms, specifically the exclusivity, and how they determined exclusivity and how we believed exclusivity worked. And we have parted ways with one of the 2 and met with the other party yesterday morning, Joe and I, and they have somebody to replace them, and we expect to see a revised proposal from them in the next week or so. And we expect that the new party will understand the concerns. One of the issues for us that they were proposing is they were looking to potentially control what we did with our side of the fiber, and we told them that wasn't acceptable. And we couldn't come to a place where we agreed on what they could and couldn't do. And so that's why they stepped away, and we're gonna move forward with somebody else. With the Ferc filings, we had the first settlement conference meeting, which was basically procedural. We went through a number of things and created a schedule. The interveners were to give their first round of discovery this week, and actually we saw Ferc staff provide their first round of discovery. Tri-State has 7 days to object to anything that is requested in the discovery, and then 15 days to actually deliver the discovery. So at this point, we have a technical conference after the rounds of discovery that will be October the 7th, and then we will have a second settlement conference on November the 5th. The various parties have been filing motions back and forth. We're sitting on the sidelines just watching the stuff go back and forth, but we're hopeful that the second meeting we might make some progress. So I will pause there to see if anybody has any questions on either of those two.
On the backbone,
Yes.
if we can't find someone to partner with, are we prepared to do it ourselves?
Yes, we're moving forward, and Scott will have an update. We're moving forward with building it ourselves if necessary. Obviously, it's better if we can get a partner, and the conversation yesterday is the ability that somebody may be able to partner with us and provide us with a loan at an interest rate comparable to RUS, and then we wouldn't have to necessarily go through RUS for it.
Okay. Well, aren't we required, being an RUS borrower, aren't we required in some way to get their approval to do to do any type of big capital expenditure, whether we borrow the money from them or not? Isn't there some involvement with them?
There is some involvement, and they have to agree to allow us to do it if we are borrowing money from somebody else, because they have a security interest in our assets. But we did that with the first two solar projects, and so it's a little more complicated of a process, but
There are no problems looking at it.
Right. You have a little bit more work on the front end, but then over the next 30 years, you don't have to deal with RUS.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that we've got that under control. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing
What kind-
none, I will move on. Oh, go ahead.
What kind of discovery are people requesting?
I will send out a copy of the discovery that we received from the Ferc staff to the board. It's 4 pages, and it's the kinds of things that we would expect. They're asking questions about how the process works. They're asking questions about how the calculations works. Can we do it without the proprietary software that they are using? They asked for all of the testimony and documents that were filed in the Colorado PUC as well as the ALJ's decision. So it's fairly, based on my experience, they're not asking a whole lot because it's only 4 pages. Normally, when I've seen discovery, it can be 20 pages. And I expect that will be the case with United and La Plata, because they are going to provide discovery, I believe, tomorrow. So.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to prepaid meters. One of the things that the AMI meters allow us to do is to have a prepaid meter program. And Stacy and her folks, in conjunction with several of the other departments, have been working really hard to put together a program for us. A prepaid meter program will provide our members with flexibility, and for those of our members that have an income stream that is not, they get paid every 2 weeks or every week, this is something that allows them to pay $25 a week or $50 a week, whatever it is, as opposed to having to wait until the bill comes in and pay the bill. It also, in talking with other co-ops, it allows the member not to incur late fees. It reduces the number of connects and disconnects that you see, and as a result, it's a very popular program with most members and other co-ops that have put these programs in place. We worked with Levi on the agreement. We have addressed all the issues that he pointed out, so the agreement is good to go. We have been testing it on 2 of our employees to see how well it worked, the notifications that they received to make sure that it wasn't something that was overwhelming when we've addressed all of those. And what we will roll it out, and it will be a soft rollout, is to people that we are calling related to collection calls, and we'll offer them this program as something to work with. It will be available to everybody, but you have to have a remote connect-disconnect meter in order for it to work. We have approximately 1,200 in the field currently. We've got 450 on the shelf, and we've ordered 800 more. So, and as we move forward, those will be the types of meters that we order so that we can implement this. I doubt seriously that 100% of the members are ever going to do this program, but it is something that is popular based on what we have seen at other co-ops. So I will pause again there to see if anybody has any questions.
What % of participation at other co-ops?
Some it's relatively high. Stacy, do you recall in talking with the other co-ops what percentage that they had?
The ones I've talked to, close to 15%, and that's after having the program for a few years. So, a few years
What
meaning
is it?
5 or more.
What is the cost of the meter upgrade to a shut-off?
The meters are pretty much the same cost. In Anchorage, when we were rolling out the meters, we got to the point where we wouldn't order anything other than that because the cost was within a couple bucks.
What does that mean that with this program, you don't need to do a security deposit? Yes.
Right.
Deposit.
We would not do deposits, and so we don't have to mess with that. And that helps the members too, because some members have difficulty in coming up with the deposit, so this is an easier way for them to be able to deal with Mountain Parks.
Are deposits, like when a new member comes in, we often ask them to give a deposit based on the usage of that property, right? So,
Yes.
So I'm glad that that will go away, but I think it might be worthwhile to at least advise the person what that historical cost was, so they're not left out just like really surprised. I know that Rob's had some audits and calls in the past where someone buys a new property and then they move in, they're so excited they can afford the property, but it's got, you know, no insulation and electric baseboard heat, and their bills are through the roof. So what I'm thinking about is, like, how do we give them a little heads up that, yeah, you're on budget, you know, you're on this pay program now, prepaid, but here's what you might expect, or here's what the last member paid.
Well, and the member doesn't have to be on the prepaid meter. They can, if they choose to you know, and we don't charge all of the members a deposit, you know, based on whether or not they have history with us somewhere else. So we provide all of the options to them, and if they want to do it, they can. Now, it will become something that is more important if they have difficulty in staying current.
Right. No, I think it's a great program. I'm just saying maybe, you know, go that little extra, you know, we already do go that extra mile, but, and I also want to, as we're talking about these changes, the online membership application, that also is another convenience that will help people. So thank you.
Agreed. Seems like a great program.
Okay, so, moving on to a couple of items that are not in my report because they came in after, we turned in the report. We have been working, with Stacy's group has been doing the bulk of the work related to, a billing date change. And we have historically had residential members that were in billing cycle 1, 2, and 3. And then we had commercial accounts that were in billing cycle 1. And the problem with anybody that has demand, and this is mostly on the commercial side, is we have to be able to get the information from either Tri-State or a program that we were using called MV90. MV90 died, and we have not been able to fix it. We could get the company to come in and fix it, but it is a cost of about $50,000 to $60,000 and then $20,000 a year after that. And we are using it to read about 6 meters, and so it really doesn't make financial sense to do that. So what we are doing is we're going to move all of the residential customers into cycle 1. And anybody that was in cycle 2 or 3, they were being billed, you know, instead of from the 1st to the 1st, they were being billed from the 10th to the 10th or the 20th to the 20th. All residential will now be billed from the 1st to the 1st. Anybody that moves from one of those other cycles, what they will see is there will be 1 month where they have a slightly smaller bill, but then the bill will go back to whatever their norm is. For the commercial customers, we're consolidating all of them into cycle 2, which will give us the amount of time necessary for us to get the demand numbers to make sure that those are correct, because we have had some challenges in doing that. And so that will allow us to be there. All of our members, whether they are in cycle 1 or cycle 2, will all be billed now from the 1st to the 1st. This also helps us in marrying up the data that we have from our system with the charges that we receive from Tri-State. So it will make it more efficient for us in doing this. Cycle 3 will be eliminated because we won't have anybody left that's in cycle 3. We have developed a communication plan, and on the August bill, there was a message that was put on the bill. There will also be a message that's put on the bill in September. We are identifying the members that were in cycle 2 or 3 that are affected by this, and we are mailing them postcards because a postcard was actually cheaper than doing a statement stuffer. And then for the ones that are affected from cycle 2 or 3, mostly on the residential side, we're doing reverse Ivr calls. We have the Ivr, which is the interactive voice response. It's the telephone, basically. And it will send out a reverse call to the member, and they will get a message when they answer the phone that says, you know, your bill is being moved. If you have questions, contact us. For all the larger customers, we're calling them personally and letting them know so that they're aware of it before the change. And the change will be on with bills beginning October 1st. So I will pause because that's a lot of information and see if anybody has any questions. I will tell you that staff, both operations, billing, and engineering are excited about this because it makes our operational stuff, it streamlines things, it makes it much easier, and it hopefully in the future will cut down on any billing errors that we incur that we then have to try and fix. Liz, you need to unmute yourself, Liz.
So just a quick question. One of in Joe's report, he mentioned that, so we're going to replace the NV90 by using tantalus meters, and then we're going to also aggregate the substation data using the SCADA system. But in Joe's report, he also notes that Tri-State's going to discontinue some of that RTU mailbox, and we're going to have to get our SCADA data differently. How do those two issues interact? Once we drop the NV90, we're relying more on SCADA, I'm guessing. You're muted, Joe.
Yeah, Joe, if you want to address that. and I think he was talking to somebody else, so he might not have heard.
I
So,
did not. I apologize. I had TuneIn on the phone.
Well, and Liz said with the bill change and that we will rely more on, in your report, you talked about relying more on SCADA data and other, and that the changes that Tri-State's making, do we anticipate that that's going to affect us in how we get the information that we use to bill?
Well, it doesn't really affect how we bill and how we get the information. We did make a decision to any account that is associated with a billing account, we are going to install a Tantalus meter. There were a few exceptions to that rule prior to this, and MV90 was sort of filling the gap, but it just seemed to make sense overall to use Tantalus across the board for any billing accounts. Now, the substation meters are a different animal altogether. And those we already get the data into SCADA, and we're going to use that data. It's a work in progress, but we're going to use that data to compare against Tri-State's bill as a sanity check for the amount of megawatts, kilowatts, and our demand component that we're being charged each month. It does take a pretty substantial amount of work to create the aggregators in SCADA to do that, but that's the plan. You know, it's in, and it is in the works. So,
but I mean, some of that'll depend on that WAPA, using that WAPA fiber connection. That's what I'm getting at, that paragraph in your report.
That's a slightly different issue. So we get several data points where we don't even have equipment, or at least historically didn't have equipment from Tri-State, and it's data that they pass to us through a device they call their mailbox RTU. I guess they provide this for several other co-ops. They are just discontinuing that. Since we implemented the mailbox RTU, I don't know, maybe Scott can speak to it, probably what, 4 or 5 years ago now. We have since installed our own equipment in many of the locations. The one remaining location that we don't have any SCADA of our own is Hinman, Gore Pass substation. And Western has connection into that substation. We would simply have to, not simply, but we would have to install our own RTU, and they would pass the information from their equipment to our equipment, where we would haul it back here. It's not unrelated to the metering issue totally.
Okay, so it's basically, that's the data that we're using to just double check our power bills.
Yes,
So we're billing off our Tantalus meters, and then we're using the SCADA system just to make sure the Tri-State's bills seem reasonable, and that lines up with what we're using with our Tantalus meters. Sort of.
That's correct. We were also surprised when Scott and I started calling around to find out how few other co-ops actually do anything to validate their Tri-State bill. I think we found one in Colorado besides us that actually does anything to check their Tri-State bill.
That's amazing. Do you often find that that there's discrepancies in what you get charged versus how much we used?
I don't know, Scott checks it.
He's trying to unmute himself.
We go.
There.
Okay. No, usually we find the opposite, that we find that there's issues with our own meters at the substations that we use to verify it. But it does help give a sanity check on, and it gives us comfort. I mean, it's our largest bill, and it's kind of crazy to not have some kind of check on it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll
Okay,
just add one little piece to that, if I can.
Joe.
There's no true validation, but there's been some rumors flying that the reason Tri-State is discontinuing this mailbox RTU is because they don't want to manage it and worry about the administrative and security problems with passing data. Since they have access to basically, well, not every, but many co-ops, and their usage and their usage patterns. There's a rumor floating that they have mistakenly sent one co-op's data to another co-op. They claim that they have not, but we heard that potentially DMEA got our data.
Okay, two last things, and these will be potential action items for the board, and any action taken at the meeting would need to be ratified at the September meeting. We had two requests for the education fund. One from Winter Park Academy. It actually went to the charitable trust, and they said no. They have been saying no to virtually all the requests that they receive. And this one was because of the amount. They're asking for $10,000 for Chromebooks, which will help them with distance learning as a result of COVID. And the second request came from the East Grand School District, and this one will be somewhat shocking, so hold on to your chairs. They're asking for $154,000 for duct cleaning of their HVAC system for all of their school buildings. And it's part of the COVID preparation for classes that are in-person learning. So as we move into the action items, if you want to discuss those, we can. If not, then we can put them on the agenda for the September meeting. So with that, my report is complete, and unless anybody has any questions.
I just have a comment in general. In Mexico, what they've done for distance learning, since a lot of people do not have the Chromebooks and the computers, they've taken over a TV station. And there's distance learning free over TV 24/7. So for all the people everybody has a TV. I mean, even the poor people, most of them have TVs. Nothing required, all the information, and then if you have questions, use your telephone. So there are other ways to distance learn other than everybody buying a Chromebook and everybody getting a computer. And it's something that, I don't know if anybody here has connections, it might be a great idea to facilitate in the United States. So just a point of reference before we start funding distance learning through our trust.
Well, and we have done it at this point so that I think East Grand, West Grand, and North Park, they have enough computers for all of the students to be able to take the computer home. The Winter Park Academy is a few short at this point, so.
Remind me, didn't we give Winter Park Academy money for this last year?
We gave them some to buy some computers, but they don't have enough for all of the students to be able to take them home. They utilize them for in-class learning, but they don't have enough to be able to give every student a computer to take home with them.
And did we ever come to a decision on whether they were eligible given our donation restriction policy?
Based on the policy, we believe that they are because it's the educational part of it, which is a quasi-separate entity from the church that sponsors the school. But I think, Stacy, did you have a comment?
Oh, the money that we gave them in the past, I just want to clarify, was used for smart boards in their classrooms.
What is the smart board? I thought it was for computers.
It's a interactive computer board that you can hook your computer with, and it's a tool for the classrooms when the students are in the class.
Has Winter Park made a decision to go total distance learning? Since East Grand is having on-site learning, North Park is having on-site learning, Gremling, I would believe, has on-site learning. So has Winter Park Academy made the decision to do total remote learning?
We don't know that for certain, and I think that the other school districts have said that you'll have the option to do one or the other. the Denver schools that, or most of the Denver schools that had made that as an option, you could do one or the other, have gone, at least they're eliminating that option for the first month or so of the school, which may go longer than that. So I think that all the school districts are trying to plan for as many choices as possible, but those choices may be limited by, as they go through the process. And so they're supposed to start here, I think, the 26th of August, but I expect that things may change as they start through the school year. So what I will do is we'll get together the information, we'll put it on the agenda for the next meeting so that you have an opportunity to review their requests.
One thing I would appreciate is just knowing how many students they have so we can have a rough sense of how much money per student we've been giving them versus the public schools.
I think they have 50 students, which we were surprised. It's in their application. Oh, 55 students, 20 teachers, 30 families.
I'm curious to know about the duct cleaning, or is East Grand planning on installing better filters and better filtration, or are they just going to clean their ducts? And I mean, my personal view is I'd rather help with a capital expense than sort of ongoing maintenance, but I don't know.
We did ask the question, because I asked the question about, how frequently they did it, and the response back was that they have never done a complete cleaning of the duct system. They clean sections of it when they do construction or they replace the roof or something like that, but they have never done a complete ductwork cleaning of any of the 4 buildings. The last one that they did some on was, I believe, was the elementary school, and that was 2 years ago. They are also looking at replacing the filters to go from, I believe it's MERV 9 to MERV 13, which is CDC compliant, and but they don't have the cost on those filters at this point.
Yeah. It just seems there's a lot of research being done on air filtration, even some very low cost box fan with filters just set in a room, and the filters, how much of the viral load is reduced by just that simple piece of equipment. It should be a interesting next, I would think, year of innovation in that space.
There's a really good ASHRAE webinar on some of the latest science that the American Society of Heating, Air Conditioning, and Refrigeration Engineers have done on COVID transmission. So if we're going to discuss this at the next board meeting, I'd be happy to send a link around to that to the board.
That'd be great.
Okay. Anything else for Mark? Any questions? All right, let's move into discussion action items.
Okay, item number 1 was the donation policy, which we brought to the board last month. The changes are all the ones that were there. It was requested that we add something to the objective paragraph, specifically saying that this policy is not applicable to the funds under policy A1 and 2, which would be the charitable trust and the education fund, or Mountain Park Services. So that is the only change between what the board saw last month and what is on the policy this month.
We need a motion
to approve.
I second.
Motion by Kristen. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Anybody opposed? Looks like the motion carries. Okay.
Okay, and that will be made public. We just decided that last month, so that will be something that will be available to the public. Item number 2 is the Solar United Neighbors Representative Determination. We had the presentation from Solar United Neighbors last month. There was some discussion at the board level on whether or not the board should have a representative to their steering committee. And so we put it onto the agenda this month to see if, one, the board wants one, and if they do, who?
Does anybody want to participate in that? I know we talked last time, Liz, and I don't think I have the time to do it, honestly. I don't know if anybody else has any interest in it.
You know,
If there is no interest, then we don't need to put somebody on that committee, but if somebody's interested, yeah, have at it.
For what it's worth, I did hear that they have already selected their installer, so I'm not sure how much they have left to do.
And the last information that I've gotten from Bryce was, I think they had 40-plus participants.
Kristen, do you know who the installer is, or is that information not?
I was not on the selection committee, so I do know that they had 2 installers that bid. I'm not sure which of the 2 that they selected. One was Active Energies, and I think the other one was, what are they called? A company called Because Solar.
And Because Solar got the,
Did they? Okay, yeah. And they typically have about 1/3 of the people who sign up actually convert. So if they have about 45, then we should expect to see about 15 new systems.
I actually sat in on the selection committee, as an individual, not as a Mountain Parks rep. I can say the prices are favorable. If you want to see them, just go join the co-op and you'll get a link to a Dropbox, and the pricing's all there and it's pretty standard. As far as the steering committee, I think that, the steering committee is still trying to, they have until, I can't remember the date, but still September, October to sign people up. So I think the steering committee is trying to drive, more interest. The installer bid did include a reduction if more than a certain number of KW are installed. So they'll reduce their price and cut rebates to folks whose systems have already been installed. I have time to be on the steering committee. I'm just, if I'm on the steering committee, I'm thinking it's to represent Mountain Parks' interests on the steering committee versus Solar United Neighbors' interests or my interests. That's the only concern that I have. I want to be upfront. There's a good chance that I will use the chosen installer for a system on my house. So I'm like, okay, what are the roles here? But I'm more than willing, if the board wants someone to sit on it, I'm more than willing to do it.
I don't remember, what was Levi's opinion on that as far as what Liz brings up?
That if, I think last time there were at least a couple of board members that were potentially looking at this and as an option, and that, if someone was on the steering committee that, and I think it was Kristen that mentioned that, it might be a conflict if you're trying to participate in it, but you're also trying to, represent the board, that might be challenging.
That's my concern.
So I don't think that we necessarily need somebody, but if the board would like to have somebody, I think, that's acceptable too.
What do you guys think?
Personally, I don't think we need a representative at this point.
Dick, you got any feelings on it?
I agree. I don't know what it's going to do for us. That would be my only, if there's something we're concerned about, and I haven't heard any concerns, what would be the point of it, just for information?
My thought had been that when they select the installer, it might be nice from someone for the board to kind of have a sense of what those terms were and, you know, maybe even advocate for something that would be mutually beneficial. But given that that decision has already been made, I kind of agree with, I think that was Carl who said it. I'm not sure how much additional benefit there may be.
Anybody else have a thought on it?
Sounds like, you know, Liz can continue to fill us in if she continues forward with the project too, hopefully.
You okay with that, Liz?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, moving on.
Okay, moving on to item number 3. It is policy C3, the vandalism policy. It's the next one up in the rotation. And you will notice that under the policy, the first line, we added the letter A.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Justin and a second by somebody. Liz, any further discussion?
One note, maybe I'll save this for new business. A member did come to me who had witnessed a construction truck strike one of our poles in Rocky Mountain National Park on Monday. So I don't know if there have been any reports on that. They said like it moved the whole pole. So maybe that would fall under this.
Rich, do you know, has anybody reported anything?
Not to my knowledge. I didn't think we had a whole lot of overhead in the park. Thought it was mostly underground now, so I will look into that.
Sure, I'll have him send a note to you guys about what he saw.
Yeah, better location would be good. Roughly.
You got it.
Thank you.
Carl, did you have something?
Yes, with the reward being up to $10,000 and the responsibility being solely in the general manager's area, is there any need for board oversight in this issue or not?
I think that all it does is it actually provides some guidelines as to, you know, that you can have a reward, the maximum you can do, that kind of thing, because without a board policy, not that the general manager would want to, but they could say, you know, this is really egregious and we want a $50,000 reward.
Well, but at $10,000 per incident, I mean, that could mount up to a sizable amount. I don't expect it to, but like I said, is there any reason or any need for board? Maybe Bryson can answer that. I don't know. Any need for board oversight here?
I think what Mark was saying is right, that your oversight is by implementation of this policy, and then it's in the manager's discretion up to $10,000. If the board's comfortable with that, then that's fine. I don't think there's any requirement for oversight. However, if the board wants some oversight, then that should be written into the policy.
How often do we use this policy?
In my time here, we have never used it. I don't know if Scott or Rich can provide any feedback as to, you know, historically, have we used it?
I'm unaware.
So I'm guessing that we don't use it that often, if ever.
I can't remember since I've been on the board, that we've had that scenario. The last time we had a big incident was the bulldozer. You know, that was sort of public and obvious. So I don't remember us ever doing this.
Sort of, Dick? Sort of obvious?
Sort of.
Anybody got anything else? Okay, we have a motion and a second on the table. All those in favor? All those in favor? Anybody opposed?
Your picture went real dark.
I know.
Okay, motion carries.
It's the light from the windows. Okay, moving on to item number 4. policy C4, the scholarship program. Basically what we did is we went through and reformatted it. We put it into a format that it approximates the other policies, so there's an objective, there's eligibility. We listed the types of scholarships. We did add the 3 Rosemary Nur Memorial Scholarships and the Tom Cipher Scholarships. And then we took out the things that were more procedural in nature, such as the application requirements, selection criteria. So we just cleaned up that policy.
I have one comment on this under the eligibility portion, where it says all students who primarily live within Mountain Parks Electric's territory and who are children of Mountain Parks Electric members are eligible. I can see both sides of this. We want to support members' children's educational opportunity. But I think we have students who are living in situations where their parents aren't members because they might live in a master metered residential setting, and they wouldn't necessarily be eligible. I mean, reading this, it sounds like they would not be eligible for scholarship. I'm wondering if that is what our goal is. Support the students in our area, or just...
Yeah, and I believe that they would be, because if you look at that last sentence, it says all students who live primarily within MPEI's territory. So if they lived in a building that was master metered, it would be within our service territory, so therefore they would be eligible.
Is that how you read it, Brett? I mean, I don't know how the scholarship committee is reading it, but it says "and who are children."
You put and or.
Yeah, so and would be conjunctive generally, so it would have to meet both requirements. They would have to be in the service territory and members. I heard somebody say and or. That would be disjunctive. You could use a disjunctive where it would be one or the other would make them eligible if you modified it that way.
I moved
Good catch.
to say and or under eligibility.
Okay.
And then
So we do have, we have a motion and a second.
I don't think we did get a motion or a second.
We didn't get a second.
I'll second.
We got a second by Carl, I'm sorry. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Okay, motion carries with the change. Go ahead, Mark.
Okay, item number 5 is a scholarship request from a past East Grant student. Rob, I believe that you have information on this, if you can unmute yourself.
Hey guys, sorry, not feeling so good today. Actually, Mark, I don't have that information in front of me. Can you refresh my memory on the circumstance of the request?
I didn't see the request, so no, I can't. What I would suggest then is that we postpone this until the next meeting, when hopefully Rob is feeling better and both of us will have looked at the request.
Okay.
I'm not sure I saw that request. Maybe my memory fails me. Stacy, did you get something on that?
No, I haven't seen anything on it. Is it regarding one of our linemen, Rich? Do you know that? Yeah.
Oh, Michelle's nodding her head.
Go ahead, Michelle.
As far as I've been, this was Rich's request that it get put on the agenda. It is regarding one of our current apprentice linemen.
Okay, that's why I haven't seen it.
Okay, it seems that we need to get more information, and so we'll put it on the agenda for next month.
Does Rich have that information? No?
He doesn't appear that he has the information, and he is moving forward to the mic.
I don't really have any information on it other than we have a a young man that's working for us this summer that we would like to extend a scholarship to. He is planning to attend Western Colorado Community College and go to line school out there. In fact, today is his last day, but we can talk about it at next month's meeting. I'll get you some more information.
That timing works on that, Rich? Another month works for you?
I think so. I think he'll, yeah, I think he'll be able to use that, the money, whatever we extend to him, whenever we get it to him. I think he's already got his tuition paid.
Okay, so get back to us with more information next month?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, item number 6, in your packet, you have a flyer that was sent out by CFC for the board member that represents our district. There are 2 individuals on there. Neither one has electric use experience, they're both ag, but I wanted the board's direction on which, if either, that we wanted to vote for.
Who's our representative to vote?
Well, I have the thing, so I will send it back in, but I want the board to, I could have just picked one of the 2 and sent it back.
But you're
in.
our representative.
Yeah.
For that, okay.
Does anybody know these guys or have any preference?
I don't know them. I read their bios. I like the Colorado guy. And he went to that Gettysburg Leadership program, which I've heard good things about. So if you had to pick one or the other, that's who I'd pick.
I'd agree with you.
That would be Jason Bransell.
Right.
Yeah, is everybody good with that?
Yep.
Everybody good? Okay.
Okay, so I will complete that and send it in. Item number 7, partial requirements contract for Tri-State. I had forwarded that to the board. If you don't have it, let me know and I can send it out again. Tri-State is asking for any comments on their draft contract, and they hope to, I believe, take it to the board in September to get it approved, which then they would file it with Ferc. So just a reminder, if you haven't looked at it, take a look at it, especially if you're having trouble sleeping, do it right before bedtime, and it'll put you to sleep.
Is this the one there where the contract committee didn't get their input heard? I mean, is this where there was yeah, they didn't get a chance to vet it? Are they going to get a chance, or that committee now disbanded?
Well, it's not disbanded, it's put on hold, but they are trying to get a committee meeting back together, but with the COVID and everything else, Jeff may have more comments on the committee.
They're gonna make a decision on this when, Mark, in September?
I believe.
Get it to the board in September?
Yeah, I believe that it's September is when they were gonna take it to the board. It may be October.
So,
but they're looking for any feedback. I was on a call with the with the Tri-State CEOs and Dwayne, and he reminded everybody that, they have gotten some comments back on it, but, if people have comments, please get them in so that they can be considered before it goes to the board.
and as far as I know, we don't have anything scheduled prior to that for the contract committee. Liz, did you have something?
Yeah, I was, one of the notes that I saw on the meeting reports from Tri-State is that the policies used to implement, that are, if you look at 3.1.3, it says basically that you're agreeing to this contract and that it's pursuant to the terms of a policy to be adopted by the board of directors. So you're agreeing to a contract before the policy. We've even seen the policy. And in the meeting notes, they said the policy would be presented to the Tri-State Board in October and voted on. Seems like that policy is pretty important as well as this contract. And then I just have a general comment, which in the recitals, there's a lot of talk about indenture and debt. Yet the contract termination payment is based on a make-whole process versus debt and indenture. And those are two different things as far as I'm concerned. And if that contract termination payment or whatever the co-op is paying to get out of their contract isn't applied to the debt, then our debt will go, our proportion of the debt essentially increases. So that's an issue for me, is how that payment is applied.
I would also add, just because Liz highlighted section 3.1.3, the beginning of that section obviously makes any arrangement here subject to limitations and availability established by the board of directors in an open season. Levi had pointed out that open season isn't even really defined as a capitalized term, so it's unclear what the parameters of that would be. And of course, given that everything is subject to limitations and availability, that's one of those moving parameters along with your policy as well.
Well, and to that point, the board the Tri-State Board has identified 300 megawatts as the limit, and the open season is currently available through, I believe it's December.
How could they have done that without approving even a partial requirements contract yet?
They're attempting to find out whether or not anybody is actually interested in it. And then once, once they approve the contract, anybody that's interested will have the option to either move forward with that interest or basically say, you know, never mind, we don't like the contract.
So during our last meeting, Mark, I believe you'd said that you were going to go back and look at the numbers and make a report to us as to whether you thought Mountain Parks, just to help us understand the numbers of what it would look like if Mountain Parks were to participate in this. Have you had the opportunity to do that?
I have looked at some of the numbers. The problem is the big piece, the elephant in the room, is the buy down payment. And there is no way to calculate what that actually is. And so it's kind of difficult to say whether or not this makes sense, not knowing how much it would be that you would have to pay to actually get into it.
Right.
So should we hope that Carl just advocates for this at Tri-State to say this needs a lot more clarity for it to be, you know, if a co-op can't even evaluate whether or not this would be in their interest, how in the world can anyone, you know, fulfill their fiduciary duty and like vote in favor of it or even offer comment on it?
Well, and as you recall, the next item up is ratification of the decision that the board made to intervene in the BDP or the buy down payment methodology. And so the issue is that, I guess you can say it's a cart before the horse, but they have to have a policy, they have to have a methodology that they actually file with FERC and a contract, and then that's subject to the process at FERC to determine whether or not FERC accepts or modifies or rejects that methodology and contract. So it would be easier if they went through the process and figured all those things out before they had the open season, but that's not the path that they have chosen at this point.
And I can add a little bit more, as speaking a little bit for the board, is that the board left initially this all up to the contract committee and essentially felt that the recommendations out of the contract committee we would just ratify and pass on. So there hasn't been a whole lot of comment on the board level on this issue, except just taking the recommendations from the contract committee.
And I,
I did want to note that the actual, contract is in your board packet. This contract was actually, developed by tri-state staff.
I would comment that the contract termination payment, which is 2.1.8, I think that should be linked more to the obligations that Tri-State has made on behalf of the distribution co-op, and less upon projected earnings on projected energy sales through 2050. I mean, it really should have to do with the assets that Tri-State acquired to serve the co-ops.
Well, I will follow up with you, Liz, but if any, part of what I wanted on the agenda is if any board members have specific issues, I can consolidate the comments and then provide those to Dwayne so that they have them before there's any discussion at the board level, and then Carl can bring the concerns to the board discussion as well.
And that number should be transparent and easily figured by any distribution co-op. It shouldn't be something that needs, that goes into a black box. That way people can understand whether it makes sense for them to do this or not.
And that is one of the FERC staff questions on the CTP, the contract termination payment docket. I'm assuming it will be a similar question for the BDP, because they said, is it transparent? Can somebody figure this out on their own? And based on everything I've seen, the answer is no. Mark, go ahead, Kristen.
Is Tri-State going to vote on this before our next board meeting?
I don't believe so. But I don't know for sure.
When is the next Tri-State board meeting?
Should be the first full Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of September.
So then,
if they
yes.
did vote at the September meeting, it would be before our next board meeting, yes.
So it sounds like if we're gonna get some comments together, if anybody has any comments, we need to get those to Mark fairly soon, within the next couple of weeks, right? They can put that together.
Yeah.
I'd like to know if there's consensus on the board, looking at Liz's point that it makes sense not to put the cart before the horse, that they should really figure out 3.1.3 before they ask the board of Tri-State to ratify this contract, because if there's some critical pieces in there that are left undefined, then you're basically voting to approve something that's undefined, and that just doesn't seem reasonable.
Which one, where are we looking at here?
It's G, and Liz, you said it was
1.3, and Bryson had a point on that, on another point. But also, I was also looking at 2.1.8 and comparing that to the recitals under the indenture.
I mean, the whole reason anyone would be interested in doing this is so they can self-supply, right? That's been the whole issue brought up by members, is wanting to do more of their own local generation. So if you offer a partial requirements contract, but you say, and then we'll add some terms and conditions on how you can do your local generation, then people can't evaluate whether or not it's in their best interest. It seems like it makes sense first to figure out definitively those policies around your local generation and have that concurrently approved with the partial requirements contract. Otherwise, it's the same issue that people have been running into with the tri-state contract, in which you're deferring extremely important financial decisions for your distribution co-op to policies that are undefined. And it just seems really important to have that clarity before approving any partial requirements contract.
Yeah, I've got to say, I agree. This to me reminds me of policy 115, where, yeah, you can self-supply up to 5%, and everyone's like, great, we'll sign the new wholesale, in 2007, we'll sign the contract, but then the policies go in and can change and dictate the terms so that it makes it extremely difficult to use that 5%. So, before one were to pay some sort of contract termination payment, you sure as heck would want to know what Tri-State's policy was in regards to that self-supply side. I mean, I sort of think they have, other than the NERC and the sort of the delivery issues, it's hands off, but we don't have a policy that says that.
So can we still get all our comments to Mark so he can put those in one package so we can all take a look at them and then get that to Tri-State in a timely?
Yes.
Okay, is everybody good with that?
I can do that. If the board can get me the comments, I'll consolidate them all.
Okay.
I think Liz's point about taking any of these payments and applying them to the debt is very important. Basically, this whole scenario says that if everybody decided to leave and paid in a chunk of money, they could pay off all their debt and everything would be clear. And that has never been figured out as far as I could see. And I like the comment about that if somebody buys out, you pay down the debt so that the rest of us don't absorb it. I think that's a very important part. I don't know whether they like it or not, but I think it makes sense. So.
What happened with the Delta Montrose payment? Is it going towards the debt?
It's currently in the deferred revenue, and a decision has not been made that I know of as to how they will apply it moving forward.
I mean, even go ahead, Carl.
Well, I believe Carl has a comment on it.
It is, Mark's correct, it's in deferred revenue. I would say that it's probably going to stay there, but I don't, a formal decision to pay down debt with that amount of money has not been made.
Yeah, I mean, I'm concerned about the debt. I mean, that's where I think it ought to go. But I'm also concerned that Tri-State's position is that this is a contract termination payment and that the purpose of such payment is to keep remaining Class A and B members financially whole from changes caused by a reduction of an electric service purchased by members who terminate their contracts. So theoretically, that money should be spread out and so much per year should be allocated to reducing operating costs. It shouldn't be used all right now or over the next 5 years. It should be earmarked so that the people in 2039 actually have a benefit because DMEA paid in. But right now what we're seeing is it goes into deferred revenue. It neither reduces the debt nor does it protect the people who theoretically, based on this termination payment, we're going to be hurt in 2035 because Delta Montrose's energy sales aren't there. So, or whoever does this partial contract payment. So I think my concern is that we're not paying the debt and we're not necessarily benefiting future members 20 years from now with this payment.
Anybody else? Okay.
Okay, moving on to, and I've been using numbers, but I noticed on the actual agenda it's letters. So H, the ratification of our FERC intervention, decision was made on July 30th to intervene in the BDP, the buy down payment methodology for partial requirements. The board just needs to ratify that decision.
And that decision was to remain neutral.
Right, to intervene and remain neutral.
Move to approve, ratify.
Got a motion by Liz and a second by Kristen. Is there any further discussion? Does everybody understand it? Okay, all those in favor? Anybody opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Okay, an item that was not on the agenda, so any action taken by the board today will need to be ratified in September, but we need an action today, is NRECA. We have talked about this last meeting. They're gonna do virtual meetings, and they're gonna be the week of October the 12th through the 16th. And they are asking us to identify our NRECA delegate and alternate, which I will need to put onto their little website. So the board needs to identify a delegate and an alternate.
Is that Region 7?
It is Region 7, yes. And so
Okay.
it will be one of those days, the 12th through the 16th. I'm assuming it will be done with Region 9 is what they normally do.
They're not sure, and because of the way you have to handle, but I'm on the resolutions committee, and I have no idea how that's gonna work out, to have conversation back and forth. So if you wanted, I could do it, because I'm gonna be participating in that. That's up to you guys.
Well, you have been in the past.
Right, but I'm, just stating that I'm going to be involved in the resolutions part. If you want me to be involved in the other, that's up to you. You could pick someone else.
I'll nominate Dick to be, the representative to Region 7 NRECA meeting representing Mountain Parks.
And who would you nominate as the alternate?
As who?
The alternate. Anybody want to be the alternate?
Who was in the past?
I think it was Liz. Liz, weren't you the one in the past?
I have been, I have a tentative trip scheduled for that week. Who knows with COVID if it'll actually happen, but, yeah. So I wouldn't be near internet, over that Monday through Friday.
I'm building a house,
Anybody
I
else?
can't.
Justin?
Not that one. What about
Good.
Mark? He's the alternate.
I can be the alternate. I think I was the last time when we actually went to the meeting in Spokane.
Right.
And Dick will be there, so we know that he's going to be able to vote, but I can be the alternate in case
In case I
something
get
happens
sick.
to Dick.
In case I get COVID.
I'll modify my, motion to include Mark Johnson as the alternate.
Okay, we got a motion by Carl. Can I get a second, please?
Second,
Second by Liz. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Anybody opposed? Thank you. Motion carries.
Okay, with that, that is the end of the discussion action items. And so we will move on to the reports. You have Scott's engineering report. Are there any questions for Scott? Scott, did you want to make a little bit of update on the fiber and RFP?
I have sent comments back to Vantage Point, final comments on the construction contract. We also sent back some comments on the design. Everything was fairly minor, so I expect that we should be within the next few weeks hitting the streets with a bid packet. Them, and it's a little bit of a discrepancy on what we've heard as far as lead times for ordering the fiber and the materials for the project. And so I don't want to have a contract that is restrictive in the event contractors can't get the materials and we get no bids. but I also don't want to have a completion date that's too far out unnecessarily. So I'm working on trying to figure out how to come up with an incentive to have contractors finish this year if possible. And so we'll see how that goes. But my intent is within the next couple of weeks to get this out to bid.
I had a question. You mentioned Gene is working with Iron Horse, Clark Lipscomb, and Mark Unicum. Where is this loop going that you're talking about, this underground loop? I was just curious as to the layout, how all these people are involved in it.
So the way they built the Iron Horse development was they started at the beginning of the development, and every time somebody built a building, added on, they just extended the service to that. And so all of the buildings in the development are currently radial. There are 2 remaining properties in that development that are not developed. And so the current service extends all through all of the properties except for the last 2. And so the idea would be to extend it all the way through the last 2 properties and then bring it back around to the source so that we would have a loop feed from either direction on it. And those two remaining pieces of property are owned by Clark Lipscomb and Mark Unicum.
Thank you.
Jeff?
Go ahead, Carl.
Scott, on the contract with Vantage Point, is there any complication there, putting out this contract now with the negotiations for somebody coming in to possibly help pay for the project total?
No, I'm not considering any of that. The financial arrangement that we would make with a third party will be outside of a construction contract with a contractor.
And Vantage Point is basically helping us put together the RFP package, putting it out, helping us analyze that, and then helping oversee the actual construction work. They don't have anything to do with the funding.
Okay, but the funder, the potential funder would have a opportunity to review this contract?
No.
Or not? They would just have to accept the contract as is and provide funding?
Yes, the entities that we have been dealing with over time, we have always provided the design that was done under the initial agreement with Vantage Point, and their understanding is that they have to basically be willing to do it the way that we want. Now, if they want additions to it, they can ask for those, but they would have to pay for any additions other than what we had designed.
One other question, Scott, about the capacity or capacitance of the underground cable in Legacy Park. Why has this issue just come up?
I think we just have an overly sensitive member that's got some equipment that's been damaged. I think the voltage situation has been there, although there are more and more instances of rooftop solar and net metering going in that area, which might have a contribution to lessening the load that's on that cable. And it might be making the problem slightly worse, but I don't think that it's as significant. I think the problem's always been there. We have several subdivisions that have that same problem. Pole Creek is one of them. Legacy Park, we've done some looking at, I believe there's a tap out way at the end of the Ranger Lakes in Walden. And there's others where we've had lightly loaded underground cable causing high voltage, and we've looked into this solution.
Did we have to pay the member any money for the damage?
Not that I know of. I think he's just called and he's pretty upset.
Is this something that eventually with our meter data management system will be getting alarms on at various meters that there's high voltage situations?
We get those alarms, but I mean, they come and go. And we get that information now.
Okay.
It's just a matter of, go ahead.
I was gonna say that, as we develop the meter data management system, it will allow us to manage the system better. But as Scott said, we get the alarms now, but we can, as we put in the meter data management system, we'll be able to maybe refine our response to some of the information that we're receiving.
Any other questions, Scott? All right, it's 9:30. Let's take a 10-minute break. Will that work for everybody? Take our tickets.
I knew you were gonna do that, I was gonna get my coffee, but that's okay.
Well, that's why, when you went out, I decided that we should do 5.
Whatever.
I did one. Yeah, it's the fires. I know. We will be in touch.
So,
Make sure the girls have clothes on, that's all.
okay, Liz is back. Justin's back. Kristen, are you back? Okay, we've got everybody back.
Okay, let's get back at it. We're, to operations and the safety report. Rich? Is Rich there? Nope.
Rich,
Upper left.
does anybody have any questions for Rich about his operations report? And then he will talk about the safety report.
Okay, so, no questions. Safety report, we're at 396, 777 hours without a lost time accident. Guys continue to work safe. As you notice, we had no near misses to report so far. Well, none in July, and we've only had 2 near misses reported for the year and 1 first report of injury reported for the year. So I'm not sure how to take that. It's a good thing on one side, but on the other, you know, it seems like we have, I think around 2 near misses on average per month. But we're way down from that. So like I said, I don't know if that I should be concerned or happy. You know, is it setting us up for some big thing to drop? Hopefully not. But you know, I talked to the guys about this, and everybody, you know, they're saying there's nothing to report, so that's good. You know, maybe a lot of this focus and a lot of the attention on it is creating this culture of you know, keeping the near misses down and working safe and not cutting corners and being complacent. Safety meeting last month was actually I have June 15th. I think that should be July 15th. Anyway, it was pull top rescue. Everybody did really well on that. So nothing really more to report than that.
Any questions for Rich? Safety report?
Making a motion to approve the safety report.
A motion by Carl and a second by Mark Volt. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? Anybody opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thanks, Rich.
Thank you.
Stacy?
You have Stacy's report, and any questions for Stacy? Liz, did you have a question, or were you just late raising your hand?
I was late. No, I did have a quick question for Rich, which was you attended that wildfire webinar with Mark. How do you think you'll integrate it into the wildfire plan?
Their plan is pretty extensive. I mean, they've got a big system, a big area. They're a big electric utility, so a lot of good ideas. I think one of the things that we need to start implementing is getting away from, we use a lot of these expulsion devices, expulsion fuses, and the arresters have an expulsion device in them also. So I think we need to start looking at eliminating those, and because each one of those is a potential fire hazard. So we need to start looking, and we got, I don't know, we got probably several thousand fuses on our system, if not tens of thousands. So we need to come up with some kind of systematic approach to replace them, because I don't think we can replace them all at once. Some of the replacement options are kind of expensive too. So we need to, like I said, we need to come up with some kind of approach on how we want to do that. I need to get with Scott and come up with a plan.
Sounds like we might have a budget line item for that, huh? Coming up.
Definitely.
And there, just so the board knows, there is a webinar that CREA is putting on Monday, the 17th, about wildfire and specific to Colorado. The other one, what they went over what they have been working on in Utah, and some of the things that they do in their wildfire mitigation plan are requirements of Utah legislation. And so I think that Rich is correct. A lot of good ideas. Some of the things we can potentially implement, but to do all of those things would be expensive. And part of the reason why they do them is because they can include it in their rate base, and it was part of the legislation that they're required to.
Yeah, it seemed like both Excel and Rocky Mountain Power. I mean, they're way bigger and have way more equipment, but there's lessons. And we could come up with our own innovative approaches as well, for sure.
Right.
Okay, Stacy, any questions for Stacy on her financial reports?
I just said, Stacy, what was the percentage sales were down compared to last year?
For the month or year to date?
Year to date?
Year to date is 2% decline since January.
I was just trying to get my head around overhead down 4%, power costs down 9%, and that down 2%. And I put the numbers in my head, and I'm just trying to compute why we're having a nice margin.
Well,
And that answers that.
And I think what we saw is the early months, we were actually above what we thought.
Yep. Yes.
And as we are moving through, the most recent month, it looked worse than the other ones, and so that's what got us to being down 2%, because before that, we were pretty much flat.
It was just, some had numbers, some had percentages, and the other was just said decline. And I was just trying to get my head around, if we're doing this, if we're using percentages or numbers, I'd like to see, when you present it to us, either all percentages or all hard numbers or something like that, instead of one saying one thing and one saying another. I know the information's there, it's just the presentation, you have one a percentage and one a hard number. And so I'm just trying to, when I look at it, if it's all one way, I can absorb it a little bit better. So,
Okay.
that's all. Thank you.
I can do that. Yeah, sure. So if there aren't any other questions, I do have some adds to my report. Okay. Dick, if you noticed the last board meeting, you asked for ratios. So I put ratios from our RUS just to give you some comparative data. The ratios are all way above our loan limits. So and then they have averages there too for other co-ops. So that information's in there. Carl, I did have a question. If I could just ask you, this came up yesterday. We have a CFO once a month meeting with all the CFOs in Colorado. I noticed that the tri-state bills are getting here later and later, and a couple people brought that up. I don't know if you heard anything about that. It's the 13th of the month, and usually by now I would have a preliminary bill. And of course, we're all anxious with sales declines to see what our costs are from tri-state.
No, I don't have any knowledge of why the bills are being delayed. It wasn't, we had a meeting the first of the month here, and there was no mention of that, but I can certainly find out if you'd like.
Yeah,
Well,
that'd be great.
One of the things that Dwayne mentioned is, on the CEO call, was that they have raised the, I'll call it threat limit, and so they'll have fewer people in the office going forward than what they have had. And so that may be part of what it is that they don't have as many people, and so if they're working from home, it may take a little longer to be able to address that.
Okay. Guess that makes sense, but okay. A couple other things that I had. So just to go through and share with you all, for the billing group, there's been a lot of changes not only from the conversion, but from credit cards, from late fees, different things. So trying to pull all these great new programs together to, what I've started to do is kind of what I call some leadership thoughts for the month, because I know that people are like, oh, another change. Something else is changing. And instead of my normal spiel, like change is ongoing, change will always happen. I've really been, actually Monday, focusing them on the MPEI mission. So we're trying to better the lives of our members. So now we have a time of use rate. So what does that mean to the customer service representatives or the 15 people in my department? Well, somebody calls and they say my bill is too high. Oh, now there's some options. How would you like to handle, that call? You could handle it with, we do have a time of use rate. Would you be interested in learning about our whole house time of use rate? Or if somebody calls and says, my bill is too high, we have an Electrify Everything program. Maybe you need better insulation. Maybe you need, or I don't like that I am a new member and I have to pay a big deposit. Okay, we have a prepaid metering agreement, a prepaid metering program you can sign up for, on and on and on. So we're trying to do things along with that too, to help the ladies up front with we don't have MB90 anymore. We're changing our billing dates. So we're gonna simplify and make people's jobs efficient instead of having 3 different billing cycles, 3 different read dates, 3 different, simplifying that. We have Smart Hub graphs we can offer our members, payment flexibility with paying at midnight if you want with IVR, Smart Hub, come pay in person through the drive-through. We're still closed to the public, and then trying to be better too to reach our members. When a member calls in, we're starting to tell them, hey, we want to just verify who you are. What's your phone number? What's your email address? What's your address? And make sure we get all those up front. That's the first of the call. And then just having all these tools for us to share with our members. So I think we're doing such a great job with all these different programs and just trying to tie it together to be able to communicate that these programs are out there and available to our members is really our focus right now. Trying to figure out, not sure about the ski industry and what's happening with the ski areas up here. If they're opening, I'm preliminarily starting to look at forecasting, and that's a big part of forecasting in the next few months. We have heard Aspen is doing I guess what they call a partial opening. There's blackout dates to certain season holders. There's going to be no in-person dining. The lifts, you can ride instead of 4 on a lift. They're going to let you do 2 on a lift. What does that look like for the lift line? So I know they're still trying to figure a lot of that out, but that's key for me in forecasting where we're going to be the rest of the year next year. And then any questions on that? I've been attending some training and additional, power systems engineering, put on a rate simplification and rate structure training, and just seeing what other CFOs and co-ops are doing at this time to look at rate design, talking about demand versus no demand rates, looking at different ways for the future that we can simplify rates, what the trends are with other co-ops, and then just trying to narrow down if we were to start, or when we start looking at rates, how we want to do that, what set some parameters for goals initially. Are we looking to recover so much through a service availability charge? Are we looking to really try to create energy efficiencies and recover less costs through our kilowatt hour sales? Putting together some ways that we can have a good discussion in the future with some guided principles on how we want to set rates.
Stacy, as you're doing that, I would encourage you to look at some of the recent decisions coming out of the Colorado Public Utilities Commission on rate setting. I know they apply to IOUs, but similar principles would likely be used in a protest if ever that were to occur for co-ops.
Okay, sure, thanks. I only have one other question, just to follow up, Bryson, to put you on the spot a little bit. Is the attorney opinion letter done for the RESP loan? Do you know?
I don't know. That's in Levi's court, but I'll find out hopefully during the course of this meeting and let you know.
Okay, thank you.
Again, I want to just say, Stacy, making the members' lives better and the online membership, that's something that since I've been on the board, we've had people express an interest in, and to see it finally getting there, and the prepaid and the approaches that we're taking to try to provide options for the members. Again, kudos to you and the staff.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Stacy? Stacy, I like the graphs. What do you call them, your mosaic?
Oh, yes, mosaic. Yeah, it's a nice way to look at data in a different format and to see trends in a different way. It's really been helpful, and I use it every day. First thing I look at.
It's a lot easier to navigate through than say like the 990. It's just, yeah.
Yeah. Love you.
Just a quick
Okay.
question on one of those graphs. You have a overtime paid one.
Yes.
Is that trend normal where it went down for March, April, May, or is that COVID related? I guess if you look at that year to year.
You know, we had a pretty significant change in the overtime graph, so it's difficult to quantify that year to year. We used to not pay overtime for on-call or standby, and we made that change this year. So I'm not sure, but I'll be able to answer that a year from now.
Yeah, Justin, I think that obviously COVID did affect March, April, because we had the crews and they were quarantined, and we utilized the crews sparingly during those times. So I think it's probably somewhat of an anomaly, and we might have seen a little bit higher numbers had we not had COVID to deal with.
I'm just looking at.
Follow up on your question, Stacy. The letter is not complete. Levi's waiting on lien search results. As soon as those come in, he'll complete the letter.
Okay. I know we have some people anxious for some electrify everything money, and we've got some cash. I can give that out, but that's the last piece to be able to draw on that loan. Thank you.
I saw there was a discussion going on at Mountain Parks in the board. Is that anything you want to share with the rest of the board?
I was just asking Jeff on the ratios. I see patronage capital retired compared to total patronage capital, and 2019 shows 3%, where the others show 27%. And I was saying, did I miss something about our retirement?
Haven't done it yet.
And the question was, have we set a date? That was what I was asking Jeff.
Yeah, we have not.
Before I ask the question of Stacy, I want to make sure I was correct.
We have not set a date. We're waiting until we have July and August results and look at where we are cash-wise, and then we'll set a date. We anticipate it'll be in the fourth quarter.
Okay. Well, that's why I just didn't know whether or not I missed something, that's all.
Stacy, on the RESP loan, if I may have misconstrued this, but in the loan documents, did Mountain Parks have to specify how much of the loan funds we anticipated using each year? And then
Yes.
if we didn't use them, then they went away, or we couldn't roll it over to the next year? Or can we roll it?
We had to specify how we thought we would use it. They don't go away, because we also specified within the different programs how much, but we have the flexibility to move it. The only restriction is we cannot use more than 50% of the money in 1 year.
Okay, great. Thank you for that clarification.
Okay, moving on to IT.
Joe, you have his report. Do you have any questions for Joe, or Joe, do you have any additional comments you want to add?
The only additional comment I will add is that I think I mentioned it last year in my board report, where Verizon has decided to cancel or do away with 3G networking. The reports throughout the first half of this year were that they were putting those plans on hold. We got notice last month that they are going to renew those plans and do have plans to end 3G coverage. They don't give you a date, but they say anytime after December 31st of 2020, 3G will be phased out. We do rely on 3G coverage for our metering data from Laramie River. So we're now in a bit of a scramble to come up with an alternative plan for that. But I'll have more in the September board meeting.
Any other questions for Joe? Okay, HR.
HR, you have the report there, which shows, our, newest potential member and possible employee.
Teeny weeny. Does anybody have any questions, HR related? Mark might be able to answer. Okay, seeing none. We have, is Rob there or?
Yeah, Rob is there. We have, Rob's report. If, anybody has any questions for him, or Rob, if you have anything that you want to add.
I could give, I know I've sent out a couple of emails on this, but just so you know, kind of an update I don't have the exact number in front of me, but we're between 22 and 25 electrify everything applicants so far in some stage of the process of reviewing contracts and approvals. So I think that's positive. This seems to be, although we continue to advertise it, social media and other ways, we're going to shoot a couple of more videos on the program, put them up on our YouTube channel and do the social media links, including the one that was our first official signed agreement with down payment we received last week, the insulation project in Grand Lake. So that's pretty exciting. And we hope to see more of those, but I think this program appears, at least right now, to have some legs and interest, and I think we're going to get some nice word of mouth here. I'm sure members on the board and employees and others are mentioning it. We do, from time to time, get outside organizations, Mark can attest to, calling and contacting us, wanting more information about the program and what we're doing also. So I think that's all very positive. And then the other thing, we're working closely with Stacy's group there on the prepaid messaging and also with the change to the billing cycle. So we hope to proactively communicate all these things and make this as smooth as we can and positive for our members as possible. So I think that's what I'd like to, go ahead.
Well, one thing I was going to give you some perspective that in our investigation of doing something through the RESP loan program, the most successful co-op that we found was one in Washington. They had done a little over 100 loans, and their program has been up and running for a couple of years. So for us to have 25 potential within the first couple of months, I think we're doing really well. As Rob said, we have a request, and Rob will participate, I believe, on the 20th in the Colorado Beneficial Electrification League. They had somebody that brought up the program and was asking questions, and so Kent Singer contacted me and said, is this something that you guys could do, like a 10 or 15-minute discussion about your program, how it works, why you did it. So Rob will be doing that. And then Rob has also been in contact with, I got an inquiry from someone that is working in Boulder. He's part of a larger organization, but he's working in Boulder, and he wants information about our Electrify Everything program because they might want to try and replicate something similar in Boulder. So for a small co-op in the hills of Colorado, we are having a big reach.
Congratulations on that. I've heard some really effusive feedback. So seems like that advertising is working. Curious if we've made any progress on the electric vehicle for member demos.
Yeah, go ahead, Mark.
That's one of the things that Levi is working on, and we've had a couple of things that have taken priority over it, but we hope that we'll get the agreements back to where we can discuss it at the September meeting. We have been encouraging, employees to drive it. I drove it up to Kremling for the junior livestock option. And then on Sunday, I drove it to Fraser. And so I've talked with Rob about the possibility that we have a little bit of a contest on our Facebook page that we say the Electrify Everything Tesla is everywhere. Take a picture of it and post it to our Facebook page, and you'll be entered into a drawing to get a $25 bill credit so that hopefully people will be looking for it. And hopefully we can, before too much longer, we can have a plan to be able to allow members to drive it. Our one challenge, obviously, with COVID is if somebody is driving it, you have to clean it after every person gets in.
When it comes to the cleaning of vehicles after folks have been in them, I don't know how much crossover we have of employees between vehicles, but it seems like there's some products that are being developed so that fleets can be cleaned. And I'm wondering if we should be thinking about that for the next year or so in this upcoming budget, exploring that a little bit. It would help with the Model 3, but it also would help with other vehicles that Mountain Parks uses.
Right.
And
currently,
in that vein, I'm like, I'd love to see the Model 3 going out with employees over the weekend or whatever. And I don't know if we could do that, but it seems like employees children who have driver's licenses, take it to the grocery store or whatever, would really it would help introduce the feel of driving electric to a pretty large group of, we have, on Stacy's note, she said we have 67 employees. That's 67 employees who may not have all driven electric vehicles in the past. So I don't know if that's in the works or not, but as we're sort of waiting on getting members in it, I'm not sure if we can get employees in it before then.
Well, we are encouraging employees to drive it. As to the cleaning, with most of our vehicles, they are assigned to specific people that drive them. They don't necessarily take them home, but so they, even though it's the same person in the vehicle every day, we have cleaning products for them to wipe down the vehicle after use. And the only one that there are 3 that potentially have multiple people that might use them. It would be the Tesla, the Expedition, and what's the third one I'm missing, Rich? Yeah. So yeah, we will look at additional ways that we can potentially make the vehicle safer, even though we're trying to limit the number of people that are driving in any vehicle at any one time. And when on the line crew, when they work together, they're in teams of 2 if they're riding together, and we keep those teams together. We don't switch them out, so that hopefully it's the same people in the same vehicle every day.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, the other thing I can add to that is I have tasked Chris on this, and I know he's either working on it or close to completing it, is making a 1-page fact sheet for the glove compartment so that if any director or employee drives it or anyone, and they get questions, because that's what's going to happen, they're going to see the Electrify Everything logo on there. It's pretty exciting. And not everyone probably taking the car is going to know everything there is to know about the car, neither will this fact sheet. It will have some information on it, miles per charge and probably equivalent, compared to the gasoline miles per gallon and that kind of thing, some operating cost information. So that's going to be in the glove compartment, available to anyone that they can hand it out if they get a question about it. And Kristen, you mentioned last month the media events and doing ride and drives. We are chomping at the bit to do all of those things, but waiting for the things to settle down to where we can do that safely. But that is way on our radar, and we're looking forward to it.
And to Rob's point, there are some little slips that are currently in the Tesla. When I drove back from Kremlin, I stopped in Hot Sulphur at the Dairy Delight to get a milkshake, and there were 3 young men that were sitting there eating, and I was standing in line, and they said, "Excuse me, sir, what does Electrify Everything mean?" So it's an opportunity for us to talk to people about what the program is and why we do what we do. So I think getting it out there, as you suggested, Liz, is critically important so that people see it, and then it gets a lot of looks. So it will be a way to help educate our membership.
Justin, go ahead.
Just a sort of going off of that with the Electrify Everything, would it make sense to make maybe a 1-page handout that is given to Alpine Lumber, Northwest Ranch Supply, Timberline Builders in Walden, some of those places that, you know, the majority of our contractors are going to on a daily basis for supplies, just so they see it and, you know, hey, I have a potential client, or here's a house that I worked on that, you know, the insulating companies, you know, we have the spray insulation company. We have, there's 2 of those in Grand County. I mean, I would just approach all of those companies with here's potential business for you if you find a correct job or bid that would work.
We could definitely put something together.
Yeah, I'd really like us to try to push the insulation. I mean, it's not as flashy, but it's what will bring our members tremendous value. And the more we can get that word out, the better for them.
Yeah, I can speak to the one project we looked at because as a stipulation of the loan, federal loan, Chris and I are tasked with independently calculating the energy savings to verify that what we lend out through the program will not exceed 10 years unless someone wants to put more money in a down payment. So we had to do that for the insulation project, and it was an addict insulation project with electric heat home in Grand Lake. And we were pleased to see that that particular bid, the amount that we could offer basically equaled the cost of the entire project minus the 10% down payment and the capital credits that were applied. So that was pleasing. Some of the insulation projects, depending on where you do them, can far exceed 10 years. This one was not the case. But Justin, good point. We can make that touch with local contractors. It might be more difficult to do that. I mean, there's a couple of local solar installers, but what we're seeing, and Liz can probably speak to this through the Green Power program, those that contact us for rebates, a lot of them are from the Front Range or outside of our area. There is a significant amount that use local solar contractors, but there still is just so many. I'm not sure we could have that kind of reach other than what we're doing. But I think the word of mouth about this is going to continue to expand. And so though we can reach out to those contractors locally, I think this will just continue to gain momentum. At least that's our hope.
Rob, have we thought about any yard signs? So someone gets their attic insulated and they put out a little sign that says electrify everything in front of their house?
We just did when you mentioned it just now. No, I hadn't thought of that. That's a good idea. We can look into what that would cost and see if someone would be willing to do that to promote the program. Great idea.
And I mean, I would still emphasize our building supply companies, you know, Alpine, Ace, Timberline Builders in Walden, you know, because if somebody's buying insulation for their house, right, there's a potential.
Or they're a new homeowner or they're an old homeowner and they're always going in there to pick up a few things. It's a way they could become.
Good point. Yeah, Justin, to your point, I think if somebody's doing that insulation themselves, they would not qualify for the program. So it's going to have to be the contractors they would hire to do it. But those are good supply stores to get the word out. And I imagine those contractors are in there a lot and they're going to learn of that and hopefully realize how they can promote that to get some more business.
It's only available for contractors.
Well, the program requires a licensed contractor to do the work.
Would cleaning out an HVAC system qualify because you're saving electricity if your system's clean?
It doesn't save energy.
Not currently under the program because we have the four programs that are in there. We are looking to add additional things, but as Rob mentioned, we have to be able to certify that the project pays for itself in 10 years. And if it doesn't, we require more down or whatever. So what we've seen with some of the others is we haven't been able to figure out a way to get it to the 10 years, but we're still working on it.
Any questions for Rob? Go ahead, Carl.
Rob, on your survey at the end of your report, question number 4, I don't know if this is the first time you've asked that question, but or how much credence you put into it, but that doesn't say a whole lot for our town hall meetings, does it?
I apologize, Carl. I don't have the question in front of me. Could you read the question?
Would you be interested in attending an open house in the town you live in with free food and drink to interact with MPE board and staff and to provide feedback? Yes, 40%, no, 60%.
Well, I think my only response to that, although of course we would like to see a higher percentage of yes. This was our idea before really COVID hit, starting to introduce these director town halls throughout your districts. And if you'd asked me what my prediction would be to that question, I would probably immediately go to the annual meeting and go to, okay, what percentage of our members show up to our annual meeting? So actually 40% for me is higher than I would have expected. And so the point of that question was to plant the seed and also to get some sort of indication of how many people would be interested in such an event. So I guess that's how I would think of that answer and analyze it in my own mind.
So you feel it's positive?
I do. I mean, like I said, I'd like to see a higher percentage, but 40% is much higher than we receive at an annual meeting, for instance.
Okay.
Yeah, and I guess, the one event that we did do was the Bruce Broads Megawatts, when we did the open house for the, Fraser Solar, is we had close to 100 people there. And, so I think that if we could have an event like this where we've got, you know, over a 2-hour period, 100 to 200 people, I think that's probably all that we could handle. And so if 40% of our members, now of course this is 40% of the people who responded.
130.
Yeah, so if 40% of the members would be willing to come to something like that, I think that it's another way for us to reach out and interact with the member. I don't think you're ever gonna get 100%, but I think 40 is probably a pretty good number.
I don't know that you'd want to be 100%, but the way I read the answer to the question, it just sounded negative to me, and that's I didn't look at it the way you and Rob do, and so if you feel it's positive, that's fine for me.
Yeah, I would just speak in the larger picture of all these things, whether it's social media, our website, the videos we're doing, YouTube, these events, what we're going to do with our electric car, the magazine, all these things. I don't know that we can look at any one of them and have a hugely impressive number, but by having so many channels, I think we're increasing our reach to our membership for those that otherwise probably wouldn't have contacted us or had contact with us. And that includes the survey itself. I think what we're finding is sometimes people will write a comment in that survey and they might not be interested in attending our annual meeting, a town hall, a ride and drive. They might not be interested in even calling the office and emailing us any other way, but they will because there's this drawing on the associated with the online survey. They will sometimes put a comment in there, and it's a member that we don't usually have contact with. So sometimes for me, even the small numbers are worth the effort as we continue to try to work with our membership.
Okay. Thanks, Rob. Bills for payment. Anybody got any questions?
I had a few. Check 80176 to a Brett Flinchpaw. What is a 2008 Onan genset?
Generator.
Well, are we buying that's what I'm asking. Are we buying?
I think it's for the Walden.
Yes. I think is that for Kremlin, Rich?
Yes, that is for Kremlin to put a backup generator on their building.
All right. And then the next two checks after that, credit refunds for Bottle Pass liquors, was that a billing problem, or did they just overpay their bill? About $6,000 worth of checks to Bottle Pass, it says credit balance refund. I was just curious as to whether that was a billing problem or they just overpaid their bill.
Stacy, do you know?
Look at that. It's either an engineering job, but I don't remember them having a new service.
Yeah.
Scott, I don't know if that rings a bell with you. If not, it would be a budget billing true up. But I'll find out more for you here in a few minutes.
Okay, just curious, there were two checks to them right in order totaling about $6,000, so I was just curious. That was it.
Anybody else got any questions? Okay, moving on.
The NISC
So
payment,
go ahead, Liz.
that software license, is that monthly or annual? It's 80264. And if I looked in my budget, I probably could figure it out. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Which one are you talking about, Liz?
Check number 80264. NISC software license. Based on the Stacy's graphs, I'd say it's worth it.
That will be, so they bill us for a couple of things. I'm trying to see which one you're looking at. 80.
It's 22,000.
22,000 is not the normal. The monthly bill is right around 16,000, and then we have postage and other payments that we pay them as well, which is right around 7,000 to 8,000 a month. I'm gonna look at that 22,000 right now. Pull it up. I'll get back to you on that too, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's no problem.
Okay. So open forum. Open forum. Liz, you didn't have a meeting yet, right? Do you have anything?
No, we Green Power will meet next Tuesday, looking at rebate amounts, sort of where we go from here as far as just focuses on where the money's going out. Sorry.
Is that at 1 o'clock?
Yeah, that's 1 to 3. We'll also have some discussion about the Walden DC fast charger project, as various thoughts have come up on that.
Okay. Dick, did you have anything?
No, their meeting is the end of this month, so there's nothing for Western United.
Carl?
I got a question for you, Liz, about the Walden Charger project. I was hoping it was gonna come up in the meeting, but, we had discussed, and I brought up earlier about having it in a more visible location than Mountain Park's headquarters. And, in the meantime, I've made contact with both owners of the convenience stores up there, are both, possibly interested in doing something and providing some money towards the project, but they need to know more about what we would require. And I don't know if you mentioned before that the grant could be changed, the location in the grant could be changed. I don't know if that's still an option either.
Well, we haven't signed the statement of work, Carl, so it could be, I think, I don't know what your availability is the next week or so, but I could come up and we could go over what's required and maybe meet with those owners and see if the requirements work for them. There are some pretty stringent requirements about parking and maintenance, and so we'd have to make sure that they were okay with that. And then we'd have to hammer out an agreement with Mountain Parks and whoever runs that location. But yeah, I mean, if they're interested and it could all work out, that'd be good.
Well,
They should be warned about the demand charges.
Right, that's the other thing, the demand charge, the paying for the electricity and the demand charges could be a challenge. But also, they really have to commit to 5 years of leaving space for this charger. No one else can park there. It has to be meet ADA. There's not specific guidelines, but there's recommended guidelines on how much space you need. So, and they'll have to do, well, depends on who owns the equipment. Someone's going to have to do the reporting. So, but we can for sure talk about that. And I'll be happy. Go ahead.
But it would be, it would be a business decision for them, so, they need to know the particulars that I couldn't answer their questions, so
Okay.
anytime that you're free to come up, give me a couple days' notice, and I will try to arrange a meeting with both of them, and you can explain the program to them. How's that?
Okay, and I'll give you a call after this meeting.
Okay, fair enough. We had a tri-state meeting the first part of the month. Most of it was strategic planning, which I'm not at liberty to share a lot with you. One thing that did come up, and Mark can probably speak to this issue better than I can, but on one of the issues we just talked about before, the partial requirements, Reg Rudolph from San Isabel proposed a program called a buy-in program, not a buy-out program. There's 5 managers on the committee to review this, and it's from Reg from San Isabel, San Miguel, United, La Plata, and I don't remember the 5th one. But his proposal essentially is to buy into Tri-State to pay down the debt, as Liz mentioned earlier, and then in return for whatever, and I don't know, Mark, if the managers group has been aware of this. I'm sure you're aware of it, but if the proposal has come back to you, if you want to speak to it.
It has not come back to us. Dwayne did talk about it on the call this week, and the fact that there's a proposal, I think, from Tri-State's perspective, the proposal needs to be vetted and tweaked a little bit before they would want it discussed amongst all of the managers, and then make recommendations back to the board. They haven't, the basics that Carl gave you are pretty much what's been discussed thus far. They haven't discussed specifics about how it would actually work and what you would do in order to be able to achieve a buy-in.
Why would someone buy in, pay down debt? What do they get in exchange? What's the real proposal here?
They get a lower rate from Tri-State moving forward.
They mentioned that the proposal was $2 to $3 a megawatt hour, or they talked about getting a dividend paid to them, or patronage capital. I mean, there's a whole bunch of options, I think, but the proposal from Reg and that group has not been, formulated yet, but the member certainly would want to get something in return if they put money into it, into Tri-State, so I don't think that's been determined yet.
Right, and the member co-op would have to make a decision about coming up with the money, because in many cases, they probably have to borrow the money to buy in. And whether the cost of that was offset by the reduction that they received, and at least from the discussion thus far, most, if they were gonna do something like this, would be looking to lower their, energy rate from Tri-States so that they were more competitive in, for the members that they had.
And some of the issues that we talked about was this, rate design change, rate reduction initiative, and we talked about the responsible energy plan, board governance, board compensation, and like I said, I'm not free at this point to share a lot of the details about it, but those are kind of the topics. We had a board meeting the next day. There was a COVID update. 7 employees tested positive. And they, as Mark mentioned earlier, there's possibility of why the bill is late. They had to move to a high level, so only 25% of the employees are at headquarters. The CROD contract from Basin, Basin put that contract in front of FERC because they are going to be FERC regulated also, and Tri-State protested it. Revenue is down, margins up, just like Mountain Parks. Member sales are down 3.5%. They had a election of the board officers. Rick Gordon was elected for chairman. Vice chairman changed. Tim Rabone from New Mexico was elected vice chair. Julie Kilty from Wyoming, secretary. Stuart Morgan from Nebraska, treasurer. And the executive committee will be those people plus Matt Brown from Wyoming, Scott Wolf from Colorado, Wayne Connell from New Mexico, Don Kearns from Colorado, and Sean Turner from Nebraska. And that was essentially it.
Carl, I saw in the August Tri-State board report summary that although member sales were down, non-member sales were way up. Is that right? Can you comment on that?
I don't recall that the non-member sales were up, but member sales were down, yes, 3.5%. But I don't, go ahead.
No, it's written in the report, so I'll just refer to that. And then, do you have any updates on the responsible energy plan progress? Have they moved forward with developing those projects that they already announced?
They're certainly going to do the projects that are announced. That takes us to, I think they said 96% of stack reductions and 67% by retail sales reductions of carbon. The environmental community will not accept that. They want 80%, period. The legislature would not pass legislation to approve of the responsible energy plan. So the other option is for Tri-State to come up with a clean energy plan to propose to the Colorado PUC, meeting the 80% goals of the governor. That has yet to be determined whether they will, because to accomplish the 80%, a reduction in the production at Laramie River Station, which is the cheapest coal plant in the whole nation, would have to be accomplished, and that puts in jeopardy the reliability of Tri-State at this point. So that's about all I can tell you about that.
Have they looked at reducing the Arizona plant instead, because that's more expensive than the Wyoming plants?
With the reduction, or with the closure of Escalante Station, and I asked that particular question at the meeting, there is no substitute for Springerville power that comes from Arizona to provide reliability to New Mexico. Tri-State is so heavily invested in Springerville at this point because it's the newest plant. And none of the other partners, Tri-State is not the operator of the plant, they're our partner. None of the other operators want out at this time, but Salt River and Tucson Electric are looking at it very hard. So there may be some renegotiating in the future on that plant, but at this point, there's nothing to replace that power for New Mexico, so it's essentially off the table.
Yeah, it seems like that would make sense for it to scale back first if it needed to happen, but I understand the complications there. Thanks for the update.
Hey, Carl, I have a question. So we talked about, Stacy did, our financials, how our power sales were down, but our revenues were up. You said the same thing's going on at Tri-State. I'm not sure I understand that dynamic quite as well. For us, it's probably has a lot to do with our demand costs, but can you shed any more light on that?
I can't.
I'm guessing it would have to do with spinning reserves that they have, that if you have less demand, you need to spend less, and a spinning reserve is a cost that you have to pay even though you don't use it, and that could be where they're saving their money, is within the reserves.
I thought that in their report, they mentioned some savings. Part of it was market purchases below what they expected, I think, fuel costs below. And so they had some explanation for that.
Okay. Anything else, Carl? One this month, as Mark mentioned, I think Monday is the wildfire webinar, and they have 2 more slated. I think they're all in August. I don't know. I sent that stuff out to you guys, I thought. So anyway, that's all I got for CRA. Does anybody else have anything for open board forum?
Thanks for sending those webinars around. I signed up for the wildfire one, and then before our next meeting, I'm doing the next CREA class too.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to say CREA is making, they're adjusting on the fly to provide the services, and I appreciate the webinars, even though I'm hoping to watch them after because I have conflicting dates, but and the classes. So. Good.
And I think I had mentioned last month, if we could get an update on our vegetation management plan. I know that Rich and Bruce and those guys have a pretty good plan. If we could just get a yearly update on how that's going.
We will put it on the agenda for next month.
Okay.
I have a quick update, if that's okay, just to answer a couple of the questions that came up on the bills for payment. NISC $22,000 software was $12,229 for our June costs for NISC monthly costs. $8,449 for paper envelopes, sending out the bills, and postage. That's what that is. The other one for Dick with the member that had a couple large refund checks is a member that opted to go off of our budget billing because he was getting a big a dollar amount reserved. So when we take somebody off, we refund their extra and sign them up for just receiving regular bills.
Thank you.
Okay. let's move on to old business. Anybody got any old business?
Curious if we're going to start getting the dashboard for the strategic plan and progress towards goals in future board meetings?
I believe that, I think it was last month that we talked about it, that, we had, report dates on there, and those would be the dates on which we would provide the updated dashboard and the progress on the individual items. And I don't remember what the first date was, but, I can look at that and send something out to the board.
Anybody else? Okay, new business. Does anybody have any new business? All right, moving
Just
on.
one-
Looks like we haven't, oh, did I hear something?
Just one thing worth mentioning, maybe. There was a fairly large solar company, Pacific Northwest Solar, that sent a proposal to me for some reason at my Mountain Parks email address. I actually didn't see it until yesterday, so I told them to reach out to Mark. But supposedly they have access to land with the ability to put up to 5 megawatts on it near the Fraser substation. So, Mark, they might be reaching out to you.
Okay?
Okay. Looks like we need to have a Mountain Park Service meeting.
Yeah, to elect officers.
So just a clarification before we go in. So we changed officers just because of a meeting, right? So we need to,
I wasn't there and
okay.
you guys changed,
So I'm
so
still,
you could run
I'm
the
still the
office
president, right?
for right now,
Right
yes.
now. So let's go ahead and call the Mountain Park Services, meeting to order. We got everybody here, we got a quorum. Did we get the minutes?
Yeah, the minutes from January 9th, 2020 are in there.
Oh, yeah, okay, I see 'em. Does anybody have any questions on the minutes? If not, can we get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Got a motion from Dick and a second from Carl. All those in favor? Anybody opposed? Okay, motion carries, minutes accepted. Discussion action items, election for all officers. What was the past slate of officers?
Before we change it, I was
Yeah.
president and I don't know who was Carl was vice president. I'm not sure.
Stacy, do you know who the officers of,
You, because you took over the meeting.
Mountain Park Services are? She may have stepped away, so.
Hey.
Well, I don't know if it matters, but.
So we can have new ones.
Yeah.
I nominate Dick,
President?
president, or chairman,
Chairman.
whatever the title is.
I nominate Liz as VP.
Got a nomination for Liz as VP, we need a secretary treasurer.
Second.
So who wants to be the secretary treasurer?
Justin. I can tell in his face.
I think Kristen really wants to, because she has that look that she would really like to be.
I'll nominate Kristen for secretary treasurer.
Okay, is there any other nominations on the floor? Seeing none, congratulations. The meeting's yours, Dick.
Seeing no other business before the board, make a motion to adjourn.
Okay.
Unless somebody has something they would like to discuss. Hearing nothing, we're adjourned.
Okay. Looks like we're down to executive session.
Yeah, and I would suggest that, maybe we take a, 10-minute break, and then come back and go into executive session.
You wanna come back at 11, call it 11?
Sure.
Will that work for everybody? Come back at 11 and we'll be going into executive session.
So Joe, if you want to go ahead and cut the live stream.
Stacy's got one.
Oh, sorry, Stacy.
Question, you want staff in executive session or not, Mark?
No, just the board and Bryson.
If I may suggest, science shows that if people have had a snack, they tend to make better decisions and not rush them. So everybody grab a little snack if you can before the next executive session.
Not that we're going to be making decisions in executive session.
Right, and then Joe, after you cut the live stream, if you can make me the host for the Zoom call.